it's been suggested, hello, that I add timestamps to these videos, so I will try doing that, as well as the posters and stuff. I wasn't very aware that I had audience members who have, like, ADHD and stuff, but, interesting. I have no quarrels with that. You know, I can't say my audience needs to have a regular mindset. No, I don't care. I respect that you watch my videos. I will try to improve to compensate for people's needs. So, yeah, if you want me to do timestamps, I'll do it. I'm going to do timestamps for this video anyway, but, yeah. Anyway, welcome back. It's another... I've watched too many goddamn movies, and I'm only on the 19th of the month. Holy shit. Yeah. I know, last month's was fucked. So I apologize for the length of that. I'll try to quicken it up this time around. I really should watch, like, Carsten's videos on these, because I used to watch his videos of them, and that's why I was like, I should do what I watched every month, and then I just ramble for hours, as you know. So, anyway, let's try to talk about the movies quicker. I've watched 37 plus a documentary. I'll be watching more documentaries because I'm going to watch stuff talking about the Omen films. I will have an Omen Come and Relax talk coming out soon. Also, my video talking about the Showa era Godzilla films is in the edit. I can't be bothered editing right now. I'll get around to it eventually. Hooray. Started the month off with Zardoz. I watched the DVD that my friends, Phil and Katie, lent me. I didn't mind it. I gave it 3 stars. It's bizarre how it has such a reputation about it, but it's also like, I don't know, it's a 70s sci-fi. I don't know why people are so bewildered by it, but I think it's just because of the costuming. It's an amusing film. It's got an interesting premise. I would definitely suggest checking it out. It's a pretty interesting film for what it is. It's not the best film in the world. You'll probably be bored by some elements and whatever, but it's also like an interesting sci-fi. You know, it's like a lot of those like silent running and stuff. So, I guess less robots in this one, more sex, so there's that. A lot of titties, but, and Sean Connery. Anyway, then on the 2nd, I watched F the Fake, because I had enough time to watch, I wanted to watch a 90-minute feature, and it was there on the Criterion channel, and I'm like, I have the Blu-ray, I'm gonna watch it, because I had never logged it on Letterboxd, so I gave it 5 stars. Phenomenal film. They played it on Criterion 24/7 like a couple of days later, which I found to be very, very funny. Which I will be mentioning that later in this video. Trying to talk quickly. FFA is good. Highly recommend it. Get the Criterion. One of Orson Welles' best. 5 stars. I watched Possessor on the 3rd. I gave it 4 stars. I wanted to get the second sight. Wanted to watch it first because I've had the uncut Blu-ray for ages now. I enjoyed it. Thought it was good. Very Cronenberg, obviously. I feel like I should still get the 4K. Just basically because of the special features, but to be honest, I'm pretty happy with the version I have, but I wouldn't be against the second sight version. It was like that and Green Room I was comparing, and Green Room would be better for having like a slightly upscaled picture and slightly better sound, but I think most of the special features the only real new ones were just interviews with a couple actors, and I already had most of the stuff on the standard Blu-ray I already have, so I've like avoided it because of that. Anyway, Possessor was good. I'm interested to watch that other one that he did about that pool that goes for infinity or whatever. Then on the 3rd, the same night, I watched The Company of Wolves. I watched the the Scream Factory 4K, which was gorgeous. It's okay. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not huge on it, but I did enjoy it. If it cut out like the prologue and the epilogue, despite the metaphor of the epilogue surmising the film pretty well, the rest of the film as a straight fairy tale is really interesting. Still not the best, but it goes hard on its production design. It's got some fun effects. It's very goofy at times. I was going to watch it at the Cinemaniacs, but Supernova was that weekend, and I couldn't get from A to Z in a quick enough time. So I'm like, I've had the Scream Factory for like since December. I'm just going to watch that instead of spending my money at the Cinemaniacs, which I would have loved to have done. And I talked to Phil and Katie about it afterwards because they saw it at the Cinemaniacs, and I was like, oh, that must have been really fun with a crowd because it's got some really funny moments. And they were like, no, it was dead. The only person who enjoyed it was like one film critic that I'm friends with on Facebook and follow on Letterboxd, and she gave it like 5 stars, and I'm like, good for her. I wouldn't go up to her and tell her that I gave her 3 stars, but she probably knows, and she wouldn't appreciate that. But, it's hard on some people. I don't want to be like, hey, my opinion's better than yours. I don't give a shit. If you like the movie, you like the movie. I liked elements of it. I didn't love the overall picture. But a good 4K. I wouldn't really recommend the film, but if you watch it and you like it, then maybe get the 4K. Then I watched the 4 films in one day. Oh my god! Well, I take one of them was a documentary, but I watched Turkey Shoot, another 3-star film for me. I wasn't as huge on this as I kind of expected, given it was the kind of a post-apocalyptic exploitation kind of thing. Not even post-apocalyptic, just totalitarian exploitation cinema, Australian exploitation. It has fun elements. Olivia Hussey's pretty good in it. Overall cast isn't too bad. Obvious exploitation for exploitation. Picks up in the second half quite well, but even then it is just the premise of them getting hunted, with kind of the obvious expectation as to what how the plot develops. Like, you kind of are like, I know where this is going, easy peasy. Like, I've seen a bunch of films that are already like this. I wasn't too surprised, but I didn't like it. Had some fun effects. I just wasn't huge on it. But I enjoyed it. But then I watched The Blob from 1958, which I gave 2.5 stars, which I want to give more films 2.5 stars. Every time I give it 2.5, I feel like it's a bad film. But it's like, no, it's just a mediocre film. Like, 3 stars I feel like is mediocre, but 2.5 is like, maybe it actually is. It's a classic in its right for it being the B-movie sci-fi that it is. It's not really a horror film, but it's too B-movie, the Jello instead of an actual monster. Cheesy shit. I watched the Umbrella version, which is actually the Criterion print, which it turns out I thought I hadn't watched. Turns out I have. I was watching it, I was thinking, I've seen this premise before. Like, I've seen these scenes, and I realized, oh yeah, I saw this film years ago. I just never logged it on Letterboxd. So, prior to my Letterboxd days. Still looks great. The Blu-ray I have is like a limited edition one that comes with all 3 films, and which includes Son of Blob. So yeah, which is what I did a double feature of, which is also called Beware the Blob. Beware! Exclamation point. The Blob. Worst of a film, I gave that 2 stars. I did not give it a like. It's got a really awful first half, terrible filmmaking, really awkward, unfunny, bad. The effects were much better than the original. I mean, this is like 14 years later. The effects are almost like on par with the effects from the 80s film, which is crazy. Mostly the blob, not what it does to people, but just the blob's effects of how it moves and everything. It looks like an actual monster, which I really like. They have in canon in the film that it's a sequel, but also the first film is a movie in the universe, which is kind of goofy. They never really mention it. The guy's just watching it before he gets eaten by the blob. The second half becomes really funny, and is honestly the only part worth watching for a pretty short film that the version I had was like, I think 4:3. It's not the appropriate ratio for it, but it was like a DVD upscale that was just a bonus feature on the disc. Not a great film, but it's not bad. It has a fun ending. The final act is pretty interesting, I guess. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's definitely a step down from the previous film in terms of like, the previous film has the charm of being a 50s, sci-fi movie, but has bad effects. But then this one is like, everything else is bad except for the effects. So, lo and behold. Then I followed that. I was going to watch The Devils again, but I was like, I don't really have 2.5 hours to kill, because it was like 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. I was tired. I'm like, I'll watch Hell on Earth, The Desecration and Resurrection of the Devils, which is a documentary that comes on the BFI DVD that Phil and Katie had lent me, because they're like, you got to watch this version. You've seen it on the Criterion channel. Now watch the version that has all the special features and the best looking version of the film available. And the documentary was really good. It also had a certain scene about Jesus where he gets assaulted. I don't know if I can use that word that describes that on YouTube. It's a really interesting scene. The stuff that they talk about of what was cut, all this extra stuff, I was like thinking, oh my god, well the DVD has the X-rated cut. Clearly all this stuff is going to be in it. It wasn't, but I didn't watch that for another, week or 2, so we'll get into that later. On the 5th, I watched Dark Waters. Somehow I only watched one film. Did I have work that day? I must have. It was a Friday. Dark Waters was a part of the All the Haunts-Be Hours, the Severance set. It was suggested by Phil and Katie specifically for this film, all right, I was meant to go and see Immaculate that day, which was also, I was not expecting to watch a biblical horror. Again, another biblical horror about nuns doing stuff with a demon devil thing. I was like, I'll watch this Dark Waters film, and then, bad name for the movie, by the way, does not relate whatsoever. And then hilariously, I enjoyed the film. I gave it, what, 3.5 stars. It's well shot. It's just a bit too slow, but it's the great kind of Lovecraftian horror. Really interesting. I want to dive more into that set when I get around to it, but I'm happy I've at least watched one of the films. Because it's folk horror, you know. I went to watch Immaculate, but the movie screening had been cancelled or something. I don't know. My partner and I went to see it, and we'd gone shopping beforehand, went to buy tickets, and it wasn't there. And then I had to just wait for 3 hours before my shift started because I had a soccer game to film. It was not great. I enjoyed it because I hung out with my girlfriend for a couple hours, but it was just yeah, we could have watched Immaculate, and I didn't get the chance, and I still haven't watched it, and I won't be able to unless it comes to Blu-ray. So, yeah, it's disappointing. Because it was in its last week of theatrical run, so yeah. On the 6th, because my girlfriend was over, I think I went to work. Did I work on the Saturday? No, that was a Supernova. The night of, because I only worked on the Friday. Hooray. I don't know why I keep mentioning working, but still. The Saturday night we watched the 88 Blob, because she hadn't seen it before, and I was going to watch it the night earlier, but I was like, you know what? Maybe, instead of a triple feature with the Blob films, I'll show Helene, because she's never seen it, and I think she'd really like it for the effects. I gave it, 4.5 stars? I think I gave it 4 stars last time. I still am not hugest on the story, but there's a lot more things I noticed this time around that I really liked. Like the girl who's in, I think I mentioned her name, Shawnee Smith. She's fantastic in this film. I forget that she's basically the main character. A lot of the traumatic elements of how people die didn't get me this time. The first time around, I was just like, oh my god, genuine shock. But I was talking to Phil about it, and he still has that reaction to it, because it's just so bleak. And I just didn't have that reaction. I don't think I was tonally with it, but I just love the effects, and Helene really liked it. And yeah, I don't think there's much else for me to mention. It's good. It's terrifying. I was like, where did the sheriff go? That was one of the scenes, and it's like you were watching the behind the scenes kind of thing. It wasn't much in terms of great behind the scenes featurettes, but it's the 4K from from Screen Factory, because despite having the Blu-ray, I was like, I had bought the 4K for the whole new picture, whatever, and the special features. One of the interviews, they don't have a proper behind the scenes documentary. They've just got some VHS quality footage, and then they've got a fuck ton of interviews. One of the interviews was a special effects guy talking about how they did the effects, and I had to look up what happened to the sheriff, and you just see him being eaten by the blob. You never see him approach it or anything. I had a Mandela effect thinking that I had seen him see the girl in the phone booth, and then he gets eaten or whatever. But no, it's just she's about to get eaten. She sees him slowly getting digested, and then she's like, blam, dead. Wonderful film. On the 7th, I did a triple feature. I watched King Kong Lives. I preferred it to the previous King Kong film. I still gave them both 3 stars. This being the 76 one. This was 86, which is crazy. I thought it was more interesting. It got straight to the point rather than being a complete remake of the original. It was like, hey, what if we just bring back King Kong, artificial heart, there's a female Kong, they run away to the hills and do some sex, and then the army comes after them. It's pretty fun. Linda Hamilton's in it. You see a titty at one stage. I don't think it was meant to happen, but it happened. And yeah, don't sleep naked, kids. Easy peasy. Pretty fun film. I got the Umbrella release. They're beyond genres. It was alright. Then, yeah, we watched Superbad, which, because my brother and his girlfriend wanted to watch it. I'd never seen it. Jordan, my brother's girlfriend, had seen it. No, I had not seen it. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my god, this is Booksmart. I can see why people were so critical of it originally, of, there was a bad take of it being a feminist Booksmart, which I'm, of, a feminist Superbad. And I'm like, that's stupid, just because it's got girls in the lead is a stupid take. But, genuinely, the film is just super bad, which I didn't mind, because I'm also I love Booksmart anyway. It's one of my favorite films, absolute comfort film. I've logged it the most times of any film on Letterboxd, which is fucking crazy because there are so many films I've watched more than that film. But there is that element where we're watching it, and this is on Netflix, and I'm just like, this is just Booksmart. Like, the exact same kind of premise and plot, almost to the T, except for the extra little details of some things, but mostly, almost beat for beat, it is the same film. It's crazy. It's crazy to look at it that way. Sure, Booksmart is the day before graduation. There's also a boat party. Billy Lord's in it. Like, there's elements like that that I adore about that film, but the basic premise of, like, at least two teenagers wanting to, have a party life, whatever, on their last opportunity potentially to do that. But then there's also the extra character, the what's his name? The guy that the main character hates. Because it's Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Yeah. His whole story was really funny. Him with the cops, wonderful time. That was what was most intriguing about it. I gave the film 4 stars. Like, I don't care much for this genre of films, but I found it interesting. I don't like obviously the homophobic elements and all these elements like that, but it's like, at the same time, they're teenagers. I'm not going to be like, this is a bad film because he uses a slur. It's like, no, they're bad people. Like, they're teenagers. They don't know any fucking better. Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I have that media literacy of knowing that people are stupid, and maybe by the end of the film they'll be a little bit better. He might not have, gotten rid of his bad slanderous talk of sexualizing women or whatever, but at least he might have a girlfriend now who's Emma Stone. Fucking mental. Hell of a picture. But then I finished the night with Touch of Evil. I watched the theatrical cut on 4K. I gave it 4.5 stars. Solid flick. Then on the Monday, because maybe the video has come out by now where I was talking about how I was going to watch Touch of Evil 7 times in a row. Watch my video I did where I talk about if it's worth rewatching a extended cut of a film. Yeah. Anyway, on the Monday, I did another triple feature. I did have work on this day as well. Regular 9 to 5, baby. I watched The Omen, the original. Gave it 4 stars. I'm not going to dive too much into them because I have a Come and Relax talk coming out eventually. Then I followed that with Damien the Omen 2, which I gave 3 stars. I enjoyed both of these films. Scream Factory versions, pretty good. Then I watched Touch of Evil. Sounds awfully familiar. This was the extended cut, the restored cut, again in 4K. I gave it the same 4.5 star rating. It's one of those films that, whilst watching it, I was like, I'm not going to do this 7-day watch because it just feels like I'm watching the exact same film, but it's got like 20 extra minutes in it, which is relevant stuff and good scenes, but it was like, I didn't feel any emotion whilst watching all the scenes I'd already seen. So, yeah, maybe not a great film to watch every single day for a week. So I decided then and there, nope, but I'm still going to make a video because I've got an interesting idea. On the 9th, I went out with Phil and Katie and watched The First Omen. I gave it 4.5 stars, one of my favourites of the year so far. Absolutely loved it. Did have a panic attack whilst watching it. That was fun. But yeah, I was alright. I still got to see the whole film. I didn't run away or throw up or anything, so that was good for me, I think. Sometimes it's like, I can have these like anxiety-induced like panic attacks and then still be like, I'm just going to sit here, want to throw up, sweating everywhere, and then the movie will eventually just end. But I'm just going to watch all of it anyway. So yeah, that's a thing. I mentioned it more in the Calm Relax talk video, I think. I don't know why I do. I just wanted to bring it up. I don't know. I think I've mentioned it in previous videos how, that one where I talk about how the cinema experience is kind of becoming worse, and how I've got that personal thing where it's like I can get anxiety, panic attacks whilst watching some films. It's not great. It really sucks. It doesn't happen all the time, to be fair, and my experiences in the cinema have improved since making that video, but still. Then I watched, on the 10th, I watched The Final Conflict. Gave it 2.5 stars. Didn't love it. Kind of mid. Less than mid. But then I followed it up with Super Mario Bros. I'm saying bros, not brothers, because it's in the title. This is the 4K from Umbrella. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars, contrasted to the original 2 stars I gave it a couple years back. That was on my birthday and I didn't like it. This time I was like, I get it now. It's no masterpiece, but I think it's still really fun. The production design's really fun. Like the narrative by itself, not thinking of the games, it's still interesting. It's a bloody weird film. I even watched all the deleted scenes, and I'm like, yeah, some of this stuff makes sense. Like you see Grengu at one stage on the floor, and you're like, it's like, when did that get there? But there's a deleted scene showing that they just turned a guy into goo, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I can see why that scene was cut, but I'm like, that could have helped for later in the film for what they do to Cooper. Yeah, interesting film. Kind of wish it kept the original ending of them talking to the Nintendo guys. I think that would have made the film much better. Not exactly half a star better, or 5-star picture worthy, but yeah, I enjoy it, and I'm interested to dive more into the special features, especially the big book in the whole Trust the Fungus set, which if you want a big unboxing, I did it in my Supernova video. Then on the 11th, I did a double feature of Dawn of the Dead. I watched the Geno cut. I gave that 4 stars, but I gave the film still 5 stars on Letterboxd. I didn't want to put the film down to 4 stars and be like, that's my permanent record now. I'm like, no, I just want to say that the Geno cut for me is 4 stars, like the theatrical cut, but the Cannes cut is 5 stars. So, yeah, the extended cut. I didn't dislike it. I liked, again, having the... what do you call it, the music from Goblin, but at the same time, I don't mind the film without the music from Goblin, or like a different usage of the music, because there's a lot of Goblin music, which is fine. It being less humor, more horror, I don't think the film's scary, so I don't really care about that kind of stuff, so I don't expect to watch it again, but having the title on screen called Zombie is really fun. Zombie with an I, not an E. But I double featured that with Shaun of the Dead, because I realized, I mean, it's like the anniversary of that. It was like the 20th anniversary of Shaun of the Dead, but like a couple days shy of, a couple days after the fact, I should say. I watched the 4K, which I had from that Everything Blue Steelbook 4K set. It's the only 4K of the film I own, so I figured I'll watch it, why not? It looked a slight bit better, but it does have, I think, a better audio design. It's like a DTS-X audio over DTS 5.1. And it did sound better. Looking better, I mean, arguably, but it was like, not, it was like an upscale, so it's like not a huge improvement. But I also don't dislike the look of the Blu-ray. I never got to see it in the cinema, so I have nothing to compare it to. But yeah, masterpiece. I gave these both 5 stars. I love Shaun of the Dead. I hadn't watched this since 2019, same as Super Mario Bros. I hadn't seen that since 2019, so that was some fun rewatches. Actually, no, Super Mario Bros. I had seen in 2020 something, hadn't I? 2022? 2021. So, you know, a couple of years of improvement later. It was the next 2 films, The Evil Dead, and 28 Days Later, that I hadn't seen since 2019. So 3 films in a row were rewatches from 5 years prior. Crazy. So yeah, watched The Evil Dead. I watched the Anchor Bay Blu-ray because I was used to watching the old Australian Blu-ray, which had that at one point, like the widescreen version. I was like, I'll watch the limited edition Blu-ray because it comes with the 4x3. That'd be cool. Open matte. Turns out, no, it was shot that way. It was designed to look that way. I had no idea, so I'd never seen it like that. And I'm like, man, this film looks so much better now. I didn't know until after I watched the film that the 4K Steelbook I have is the exact same version, just with Dolby Vision. I think there are a few extra edits, because I know that there is the original version, which I have the Book of the Dead DVD of, which has the original uncut version, but it is on DVD, so it still looks like shit. Not great. Also in, like, widescreen anyway, so it's like, I'm pretty sure it's in widescreen. Yeah. So that's annoying, but it does come with the original commentary track, which is the only reason to really keep it outside of how cool the book looks, because it's a leather latex book. Crazy book. But yeah, so that I have for the original commentary track. The Blu-ray copy I have has a bonus disc with all the special features, so it's still worth keeping that around, as well as the Blu-ray itself having both cuts of, like, you can watch the 133:1 or the 185:1, I think is the... what it's called. I'm not great at remembering aspect ratio names. But yeah. So 133:1 is the way you want to watch the movie. Easy peasy. But yeah, the 4K UHD I think has a few extra edits where, like, someone walks in a doorway and it, like, fades into how they're standing or something. I never noticed it while watching it. I only remember the fact that the moon looks better. in this Blu-ray version, because I know in the original it just looks like a matte block. So it looks cheaper, but on a DVD copy, you probably wouldn't notice most of that stuff anyway. So there are videos online that compare the pair. But I was happy with the Blu-ray. I probably should have watched the 4K with the Dolby Vision. I'd like to. It doesn't have different audio though. I was expecting different audio. It still has like I think it's a 5.1 track, but no mono. The only one that has the original audio is the DVD, which has that has a DTS, no, it's like THX, whatever that really loud thing was. It has that enhanced for 2.0 stereo and 5.1 mixing, I think. But I believe it has the original 1.0 mono as well. So if I want to watch a scary, spooky version of it that looks like shit, I'd watch that. But on a bigger TV, not a great effect, because it looks like an old DVD, and it's also not in the original aspect ratio, which sucks. So I gave the film 5 stars, by the way. I love it. Wonderful. So much fun to watch. Yeah, then I watched 28 Days Later. I was in the mood. Thought I hadn't logged on Letterboxd. Turns out I had. Again, 2019. I've had the Blu-ray 2-pack with the 28 Weeks Later for years now. I know it's well out of print, which is really funny to me, mostly because this sucks, dude. But yeah, mostly you can't stream it anywhere, you can't watch it anywhere, people want to watch it. And I had the Blu-ray. I got it for $10 years ago, which is great. So, good film, gave it 4 stars. I don't like the digital camera work look. It looks like shit, but it's what they shot it with, and that's just how it is. It has an effect, sure, and still they make the cinematography look as good as they can, but the only one who really perfected making digital videos, like that was Michael Mann. Even David Lynch tried, and with Inland Empire, and you can watch the original Blu-ray, which I wouldn't suggest, but at the same time I would suggest, because of course I'm going to suggest the Blu-ray over the DVD. DVD is really the way to go for it. But I haven't seen the Criterion yet, but I know that has AI upscaling and shit, so I've heard of really awful things, but it has a bunch of special features that I wanted, so 4K restoration for a film that was shot in 576p. Genius. Anyway, then on the same day I watched 5 films in the same day. I watched Female Prisoner 701 Scorpion from 1972. I gave it 5 stars. It's part of the Arrow set. Wow. Obviously, exploitation, Japanese, female prisoner film. But with really interesting commentary, really interesting effects, because it's got this surrealist element to it as well. Very experimental, first time director, a lot of great stuff. I know that there's been criticism on Bluray.com has criticism for the color transfer for all 4 of these films, and I'm sure it probably could look better, but it looks fine. I don't know why you've been so harsh on it. It's exploitation films from the 70s. I don't expect them to look the best, especially because they're really dark. So it's both tonally and the way that they look. Good film though, highly recommended. If you're into exploitation cinema, if you don't, you might not like it. You might be like, this is too fucked up. Yeah, it's fucked up. That's the point. But it's not it relishes in how messed up it is. It's a revenge film after all. So yeah. Then I watched the 2006 Omen film because the Blu-ray for the 4th film was scratched and I couldn't watch it, so I ended up watching the 2006 film. It sucked. Gave it a 1.5 stars. Worthless film, not worth watching. If you've seen the original, then you don't need to watch this. It's the same film, but worse. So the original film, stick with that. Do not watch the 2006 version. Then I watched At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, which I gave 3.5 stars. It's part of the Coffin Joe set, which I also recently got from Arrow. Beautiful 4K restoration. I wasn't as huge on it because Coffin Joe's a bad guy. He's he's a bad guy, a genuinely bad guy. So it's this guy's not fun to watch. The last act was pretty fun though. A lot of surreal visuals and the like, so that was really interesting. Then on the 13th, I went. I third wheeled a date night of my brother and his girlfriend. They went to see Late Night of the Devil, and I was like, "I'm coming," and they're like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "I'll just sit in a different row. Just drive me there." I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. It has an element to it where, because it's a late night show, there is stuff like that I don't really care as much for. I, in my brain, was comparing a lot to Ghostwatch, and I love Ghostwatch, so I'm like, oh, Ghostwatch is so much better. But for what it is, I really like. It does a lot of things really well. The documentary thing at the start, even the really surreal ending, I really liked. I know a lot of people did not like the ending. There is the AI title cards, I know about that stuff. I'm not huge on that, but the rest of the film clearly has this heart and soul and passion put into it. Someone just was a cheapskate for one section of the movie. It is what it is. Maybe if they release it to Blu-ray, they'll redo that stuff and not have that stuff in it and actually hire an artist. But, nothing's perfect. But the film itself, I still think is really good. I think if it was... There were elements about it, like the black and white sections, which I think should have been done differently because they make it seem like people knew that there was a camera there, but I'm like, I don't think that they did. It doesn't seem that way. They're talking about shit that, you wouldn't talk about next to a camera. So there were elements that I feel like could have been done better, but for like its shoestring budget, its style, its production design, the costuming, the effects, wonderful. Also Australian. Who'd have thought it? On the 14th, I did 4 movies. I did Predator because I was filming all day and I had watched Red Letter Media talk about Predator 2 and I'm like, I want to rewatch Predator. So I watched the 4K, loved it. 5 stars, masterpiece. Best McTiernan film. Probably. He's a good filmmaker. Then I followed up with Predator 2, which I gave 4 stars. I hadn't logged this on Letterboxd before, but the 4K looks great. It's a good film. I think it's really solid. I can understand why people don't like it. I understand why people do like it. I enjoy it. It's nice as a different kind of film, but similar enough to the first one. It also looks great. It's so scenic. There are so many great locations for the city. It's much better visually in contrast to the first film, but I love the first film with the jungle, the cramped feeling of it all. It's good. And the first film was mostly like this kind of like hogwashy, like, the greatest action heroes of all time are going to get fucking murdered. Isn't it great? It's so cool. It's like the antithesis to like toxic masculinity, even though ironically the guys aren't really toxic. If they were toxic, they would have done shit to that girl that would have been like irredeemable, but they're like, nah, these guys are just like really muscular bros, basically. They're just really good at killing people. That's about it, Then I jumped on the Criterion channel with Guy and Bill because they had the 24/7 Criterion and they had Godzilla from 1954 playing. So I rewatched that in the end. Wasn't really meant to, it just was on, so that's how the 24/7 live stream works. And Bill hadn't seen it before, so that was really entertaining for him to be surprised by a lot of the effects. At one stage, Guy dropped out of the call because his like computer fucking shut off on itself or whatever, and I was describing to Bill as to how, because like Bill was surprised by all the effects of like Godzilla being in the city and how realistic it looked, and I was like, yeah, that's Ishiro Honda. He was so good at capturing that kind of stuff. And I was talking about the later films that he did, and like Terror of Mechagodzilla versus Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and I don't know, it's good stuff. And right after it, again randomized when Guy had come back, it was playing Modern Times, the Charlie Chaplin film, which I gave 4.5 stars. I don't think I've seen it before. I don't recall any of it. I know I grew up on a bunch of these films, but it was like, I don't remember this film at all, so I don't think I've seen it. I was laughing my head off. Guy and I had a blast watching it. Just great classic stuff. But Chaplin, I know some people while watching the channel got stuck during the cocaine scene. It kept apparently repeating itself. It didn't for us. We were fine. So, and I stayed up to like 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday night, like Monday morning, watching it when I had to go to work the next day. So that was a great idea. It wasn't a great idea, but it was a good film. Really fun. I think I watched the first episode of... Oh no, I watched the first episode of Fallout between Predator 2 and Godzilla with my brother and his girlfriend, and yeah, we liked it. I was surprised by how much I liked it. I'm only currently 3 episodes in. I do like it. I'll watch more tonight. I'm only watching it with my brother because I can't be fucked watching it by myself. So, it's also one of those, we're watching the theater room. I don't want to watch it and then find out that he wants to watch it later. I'm like, I've already seen it. I gotta do other stuff now? I could edit, but Anyway, on the 15th, I watched Female Prisoner Scorpion Jailhouse 41. Really messed up. Beautiful. 5 stars. Better than the first one, but if you want inside prison all the time, the first one's better for that, but the second one has a lot more open space range. It's a prison escape film. It has this great surreal imagery. I love it. It was wonderful to watch. So it's got some really fucked up scenes. Again, has a lot of sexual assault in it, which is not pleasing to watch. And it's like, this is disgusting. But what happens to the characters in the end? Because vengeance. Yeah, the people who commit the atrocities do get punishment. So yeah. On the 16th, I watched City Lights because I had the DVD, and then I decided I'm going to watch it on the Criterion channel because it's in HD. Despite the DVD still being the remaster because Chaplin kept like the original negatives of all of his films. Hooray for being rich. Loved it. I think I gave it 5 stars. I did. I preferred it to Modern Times because like I'd seen it before. I was watching it, I'm like, I've definitely seen this before. And I mostly, in my rewatch, realized like I really like the emotional romance, like the emotional element to the romance. Yeah, I like the romance plot to it. It really paid off so beautifully by the end. I wouldn't say it was as funny as Modern Times, but I think mostly because I'd seen a lot of this before. So, yeah, it had more situational funny things. And obviously, like, the boxing scene is iconic, though basically completely irrelevant to the film when you think about it, outside of he wants to get money, but then he still loses, so he doesn't get the money. It's just nice. It's a funny, goddamn, well-made goddamn movie. Probably, maybe my favourite Chaplin film. On the 17th, I double featured The Devils. I did rewatch it in the end. The X-rated version, which I think is slightly longer than the version that they had on the Criterion channel. I don't know. Basically, all of it seemed the same, except for like maybe 1 or 2 couple seconds here or there. Turns out the scene about Jesus, not in it. That's never had, the unrated cut has never been officially released. Never been remastered. It sucks the history of the fact that it was never brought to Blu-ray because if Warner were like, nope, you will give BFI permission to make a DVD, but they ain't making a goddamn Blu-ray. It definitely looked better than the Criterion version because, again, streaming problems and whatever. But yeah, still not fantastic 5-star film because I'd watched it at the end of March. What month is it now? It's April, right? Yeah. Well, it's May now that you're watching this, but when I'm filming it. Anyway, yeah, good film. X-rated cut, still fantastic. I definitely seek out the BFI release because of all the special features. Best release of the film. On, yeah, same night, I watched The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't huge on it. I get the appeal. It's one of those, like, I understand why it's considered so good. The cult classic element, it's like Romero's commentary zombie films, but there's less zombies and they are bred in different ways. Like, there's elements I liked. I just didn't love it. I was just like, yeah. I don't know. It got to a point in the film where, like, about 20 odd minutes in, I was just like, it just kind of stopped being interesting to me. It became interesting about half an hour later, but the rest of the time in between there was just, like, kind of drab, but the last act was still really fun, so it's like, I just didn't love it. It's one of those things I'm like, I wasn't there, you know? I don't know what it was. It wasn't any expectation that it would be an insane zombie film fest or filled fest or anything like that. It just wasn't amazingly interesting to me. So, yeah. I might rewatch it. It was one I borrowed from Phil and Katie, but I was just like, look, I'll borrow it in a month or so, give myself some time to, like, breathe on it, and I'll come back to it. Then I can watch all the special features and see if I actually like it more. But that was the Severin copy, I think? Yes. Severin 4K remaster. Still look fantastic, but yeah. Then last night, as filming, I did the double feature of Coffee, which was the Arrow video release, gave it 4.5 stars. Loved it. I totally get it. The blaxploitation, all this stuff. Oh, baby. Beautiful film. Really funny, really action-packed. Not crazy action-packed, but like, you know, low-budget 70s, you know, blaxploitation action-packed. A lot of nudity. Just a really fun movie. I would highly recommend it. We followed it up with Foxy Brown, which I drove to the Astor because they were planning for the 50th anniversary. Pissing down. Whole time. Picked up Phil and Katie, went and saw it. We were the only people there. Guy gave us free popcorn because it was the last session of the night. No one had like really been there for like Temple of Doom, which was on just prior, which I was going to watch. I was thinking of watching it that night, but I'm probably going to watch it on Tuesday night with Guy instead. It's just really amusing watching it. I am wearing my Jackie Brown shirt, by the way. I wore it last night. Hooray. The notable thing about watching it is that I've seen it before. I saw it on the Criterion channel a couple of years back in 2020. I wasn't huge on it because I also didn't really understand the genre. I didn't know what I was really watching. I was expecting more, got less, was disappointed. Watched it this time, gave it 3.5 stars, preferred it, actually enjoyed watching it. Watching it with Phil and Katie was great. A guy ended up coming in like 20 minutes in and a couple of rows in front of us. We were at the back in the comfy sofa chairs, and this guy was a couple of rows in front of us. But we all had a blast. It was really fun. I don't like popcorn, but it was a free box, so I was happy with that. It was a fun experience, you know. They didn't turn the lights off, which was really funny. I think they just forgot because there's like no one really there. They knew we were there, obviously. We hadn't bought tickets online. We went there. We went to the register, bought the tickets, played some pinball with the Godzilla, which was really great. I had a great time. I didn't. I'm feeling Katie aren't going to Cinemaniacs next, so thank God they invited me to this because I would have been so disappointed. But it was also like Phil's birthday, so it was like just a fun little hangout. Hey, let's go watch this movie. It'll be fun. We had a blast. It's cool. I enjoyed myself. And then today I watched The Omen 4. I watched their DVD, which I borrowed, and then I actually chucked on the Blu-ray afterwards to see if I could watch the special features. Lo and behold, the disc, despite being scratched, still actually allowed me to suddenly play the whole film. Or at least parts of it. I don't know how screwed up it still is. I'm going to watch some of the special features after this. And, yeah, so I didn't mind it. I gave it 2.5 stars. It's definitely not the best, but not the worst of the series. Having seen the 2006 film, in contrast, I'm like, the fourth one's definitely better, but I can see why there's like, people don't like it in contrast to what had already come out. So, yeah. Anyway, what else did I watch? What was the last thing? The last thing was The Omen 4. I've watched some very interesting things since then. A lot of very interesting things. And it's like currently the 28th of the month. So 29th. So I've still got today and tomorrow left to go. So we'll see what that's like. So I continued after The Omen 4 and filming both my video of this and also my... Did I even do The Omen 4? I did, because I did it and then I had to go to the mechanic. So... yeah, so I filmed the video, the rest of the video you just see it, of course, I remember. But then I watched The Omen Legacy on DVD. Well, it was actually the, from the Scream Factory release of the Blu-ray of the 4th disc. So I did put it on, and it worked, and the film worked, so I just watched the special feature. It was like an hour 40, really good, like, behind the scenes of, like, the 4 films, talking about the making of them and all this kind of stuff. Had some really interesting stuff for the behind the scenes, for how they did a lot of practical effects, people talking about the film, whatever. There's a good interview on the disc as well. So as an overall solid disc, despite how potentially low quality the film might be, the Omen Legacy itself was really good. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're an Omen fan. Or just want to know more about the films. Like, it kind of seems like the perfect way to top off the 4 films, and I like how they left it on that disc. Because sometimes you get boutique labels who will give you all the big documentaries and stuff on, like, the first disc, and then you'll be like, oh, I'll check out all the special features, and then that special feature spoils the whole entire series, and you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. So I didn't have to worry about that, because it was on the 4th disc. On the 20th, me and my partner went to the Cinemaniacs and watched Teen Wolf. Yeah, that one. I'm not huge on this film. I couldn't give less of a shit about it. Watching it a second time... because I watched it as a kid, I was like, man, this film is a lot worse than I remember. The best joke, being that his dad is also a werewolf, still pays off. I forgot it was so early in the movie as well, which I do like, instead of it being he has to hide this stuff from his dad for so long. It's like, nah, it's just revealed really early on. But they don't do anything with it. It's just emphasized like, your principal was my bully, and then I bullied him back, and I went werewolf mode, and he went, whoa. Like, they don't do anything with the whole... what happened to the mother? Why do they become werewolves? Is it like, how can they just turn it on and off? Like, how did he not know that his dad was a werewolf the whole time? Like, he's been around for 16 years, 18 years, and he doesn't know his dad's a werewolf? That's a bit concerning. So, yeah, it's easily a film that's ideas are interesting, could have been a lot better improved. I don't know if the TV show from MTV or whatever did that. I don't know. Never watched it. Don't care to see it. But yeah, this is basically just we want Michael J. Fox to do basketball, but he's too short. Let's cast someone who's 6 foot and looks like a werewolf. And, man, what if he becomes a werewolf? It feels like a cheap excuse for a film. So, yeah, I gave it 2 stars. I wasn't huge on it. Then on the 21st, I've watched 3 of the best films of the year, including one that was a rewatch that I was introducing my partner to, which is The Gold Rush, the classic Charlie Chaplin film. I have the Criterion version. We watched the original 1925 silent version, which is like from the best remaining elements. Beautiful. I did watch parts of the talkie version, the 42 version after, to kind of compare and contrast, and I much prefer the silent version. It is longer because of like the additional scenes that they still had, but also because, of course, of all the intertitles. But also the ending is better. They have a whole scene that is completely removed from the 42 version. So I'm like, man, that's kind of crazy, because that's like the best part of the movie. Like it really like brings it all together instead of just having Chaplin narrate saying, and they lived happily ever after. You actually see them be in love for a couple minutes. It's nice. So, yeah, Criterion was good. Good remaster. Looks great, sounds great, all that jazz. Helene had a blast because she'd never seen a Chaplin before, so hell of a one to introduce her to, that's for sure. Then we went to the cinema and watched Challengers, which I gave 5 stars. So far, my favourite of the year. I absolutely loved it. Like, when they say a film floors you, it floored me. I was not... didn't have high expectations. Like, I like Zendaya. I like a lot of Lucas films, the director, and I was like, I don't give a shit for tennis. The trailers didn't really pull me in, like, oh, the Zendaya threesome movie. Like, none of it interested me, but I was like, I like the poster, and if I've got the right poster there, it's the one where it's like the 2 guys are in their sunglasses. I'm like, that's a really nice poster. So, and I got to watch it before the Americans did, so I got to enjoy it before they went all ham-fisted about it. They like it. They just think it's horny cinema is back. Horny cinema is not back. This ain't that horny of a movie. But yeah, really, really fun. Really wonderfully shot and edited, and just such an amazing score. Great performances. Just a terrific film as overall. I think it might be my favorite from Luca. Like, I love like his version of Suspiria, even like Bones and All. He's got so many good films. Even like A Bigger Splash I really like. So there's none of them that I don't like. I haven't seen I Am Love, but I do have the Blu-ray. But yeah. And I haven't seen that TV show, the We Are Who We Are, whatever. I do have a friend who watched it, and he wasn't so hot on it, but I think mostly because he didn't like the main actor. He's just like, this guy's not a good actor, but it's a decent show. So, yeah, I don't know. So that's my favourite of the year, but then I did follow that with Hundreds of Beavers, which is my second favourite of the year. I also watched that with Helene. We watched it in here, actually, because you can't get it legally in Australia, so don't tell anyone, but we watched it and had a fucking blast. It was like the perfect contrast to watching a Charlie Chaplin from earlier, because it's black and white, silent film. It has that kind of element of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton to it. It's beautifully done. It is absolutely hilarious. I highly recommend it. I would consider it a 2024 film, despite Letterboxd having 2022 as the label, because it got a major theatrical release, or at least a widespread theatrical release in America this year in January. And then like kind of digital in April. So yeah, because it's been going around film festivals for like 2 years, which is crazy. And that's how like a couple of people I knew and I follow had already seen it because it went to different film festivals. So yeah, if you can get your hands on it, even if you have to do the old horror stuff, I highly recommend it. Absolutely hilarious film. So yeah, that's really cool. Also, the name implies something sexual. It isn't. It's just a guy literally has to fight hundreds of beavers. Eventually, it's like watching Don't Starve, but as a movie. It's insane. It's really, really fun and really creative. Then on the 22nd, I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I watched the director's cut. I also looked at parts of the special edition to look at what the extra parts were at the end of the movie, and honestly, stay away from it. You don't need the extra internal images of the ship. Sure, it does look pretty, but it doesn't add anything. It kind of like, it kind of takes away from the mystification of it all. I don't know if I've seen the director's cut before. I had only really watched the theatrical cut growing up as a kid, even though the DVD we had all 3 versions and a map showing what's different. So I might have watched the theatrical cut and the director's cut as a kid, but watching the director's cut on 4K, it's stupendous. It is such a gorgeous film. I ended up putting on my headphones because I was like, no, I had to go to bed, whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll just put it on because I knew it was going to get loud. If you've seen the movie before, you know what the final act is like. It gets loud, and it is so beautiful. Absolutely stunning film. It is so funny to me how he abandons his kids and his wife. Like, man, what a... Gee, I wonder if Spielberg got any inspiration from his own parents for that. Oh, who would have thought? It's a tremendous film. Obviously, if you haven't seen it, get the 4K. It looks amazing. Beautiful stuff. I should watch a behind the scenes making of, because the documentary is on the Blu-ray disc, and apparently it's quite good. So, but then on the 23rd, outside of finishing, did we finish? We finished Fallout. I should mention that. I gave it 3.5 stars as an overall. I think it's too short. 8 episodes was not enough to develop everything properly. There's a lot of stuff that they easily could have expanded on. I do like the main story for what it's worth, but none of it shocked me or surprised me, because I'm like, it's Fallout. I kind of expect all of the twists, and I won't spoil anything, but a lot of the twists I really did expect. Everything that was so crazy that could have happened with any of the characters, I expected was going to happen before it happened. So, yeah, it was still nice to watch. It was fun. It had its good episodes. It had its mediocre episodes. A lot of fades to black for some reason. I don't know if this is meant for TV. I don't know what the hell that was all about. And I do like the cast. I definitely think they need more development. But again, it's really hard to do that in 8 episodes. Especially with the story structure they're going for. Because I was like, oh, it's deliver head from A to Z. And then it kind of wasn't, and then it was again, and it kind of like, it's like it sets up this idea of A, setting up the universe, and then B, setting up a main plot of like, we need to get from here to there, and this is how the character is going to get from here to there. So find her dad, deliver a head to a location which makes her find her dad. But then you get all this other stuff in the middle. So it's not bad. It's very Fallout-like, where you've got your main plot, and then you've also got all these side quests. So I do appreciate that element to it. I like the side characters. I love that Matt Berry's in it. I'm not huge on some of the cinematography. It's very landscape heavy. There's not a lot of creativity with some of the filmmaking. Like, a lot of it's, reverse A-B shot kind of stuff. There's so many basic elements that could have been a lot more jazzy, And I don't like the aspect ratio. It does my head in. Like, I don't need a cinematic aspect ratio for a TV show. Like, why? Like, the 4:3 worked for when they did it because it's in context, but I don't care for the cinematic aspect ratio. It looks really dumb. So, yeah, but still, I had no major issues. I enjoyed it. My brother loved it because he's a big Fallout person. His girlfriend enjoyed it. We watched the whole show together, which is bizarre. I was just waiting for them to come over and watch it, so I had no urgency to watch it immediately. But then, of course, spoilers are going around the internet like crazy now, and I'm like, I kind of like that I've already seen it. So, benefits of, I benefit, But yeah, so that was a fun way to do Tuesday. But then I also added the making of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is like a 50-odd minute long documentary that's on the Blu-ray. You can also find it on YouTube. It was interesting. A good looking of how they made the film and everything. It could have gone a lot more in depth. This could have been like an hour and a half long thing, but it is what it is with what footage that they had and the kind of talking head 90s doco stuff that they did. So obviously originally made for the original DVDs. So it's not bad. It was fun to watch because the next day I went to the Astor with Guy and watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Who'd have thought it? Which was really fun, obviously. I gave it 4.5 stars. I love this film. For me, of all the Jones films, it's the kind of ones that you gotta get your mindset into. Like, you gotta get into the headspace of this is dark, but also comedic. And I was hoping the crowd would be a bit funnier, but the crowd didn't really add much, so it was just nice to see it on the big screen. Like, I've only seen the 4th and 5th ones on the big screen before because they were released in my lifetime. So I'd love to see Raiders and Last Crusade on the big screen, but I think Temple of Doom, I gotta be honest, I think the series kind of hits that in terms of ranking. It's like, it still goes probably 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 and 4 are like on par. I think I like 5 more than 4, but at the same time I'm very up in the air, because I love the second half of 5, but I don't like the first half as much, whereas I like the first half of 4, but I don't care for the second half. So it's like, there's an exact point in the 4th movie where I am like, you've lost me. And I grew up loving this film, and I'm like, I'm a bit more cynical of it, but I don't hate it. I'm not like, it ruined the franchise. I don't give a shit. It's a movie. It doesn't matter, So, yeah, but yeah, it's funny. I'm growing less and less in love with the 5th one because I love the 1st and 2nd one more, because I like the episodic nature of just random adventures of a guy who's just an adventurer, My mate doesn't like the third one as much because they are like, oh, he's dad. Let's do backstory. He doesn't like that. He's like, no, it's an adventure story. We don't need this stuff. But, you know, it's still iconic for what it is. Like, you can't go wrong. Sean Connery, it's a great film as it is. But, yeah, I love Temple of Doom. It's really fun. It's racist, yeah, obviously. But I find it comedic in a way. In a way because I'm looking at it from the point of view of it's Willie who's kind of racist. I mean, the filmmakers kind of are as well. It's more of a George Lucas thing, let's be honest. So, yeah. Anyway, that's a debate for another day. On the 25th, I watched Monkey Man. Finally got around to watching it because I was at my partner's place, and they had it at Reading Cinema for $10, and I was like, yeah, sure. It was either that or Abigail, and I want to watch Abigail with Phil and Katie. Don't know when I'll get around to doing it, but I would like to watch it with them. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's a film that could have been better in different avenues. I still liked its development. I liked the action. I think it's a tad long, but what they do talk about and how they accomplish it is still pretty decent. It was different to what I expected. A lot of people said it was like Dev Patel's John Wick, and I highly disagree because it is a completely different narrative function outside of vengeance. It's like the guy is not good at fighting. He has a whole reason for why he's bad at it, and then a reason for why he becomes good at it. That's his character development and whatever. So it's like, hence the action scenes are really like choppy and whatever at the first half, but in the second half they're really concise and like precise and everything, and it looks incredible. But it's a great juxtaposition. So, yeah, I definitely would look at my review for that, because I dive pretty heavy into that kind of stuff without going spoiler territory, but there's not really much to spoil. It's a vengeance film. But yeah, it was interesting. I definitely check it out. I was happy to watch it for $10 in the cinema. It easily could be a buy the Blu-ray, watch it kind of film. Like, there's a lot of dark scenes, so I wouldn't suggest Netflix for its compression, but you could probably stream it. But again, if it depends on how you have watched John Wick the first time. For me, it was a Blu-ray that I bought for Dad for Father's Day, and they had it on. I missed the first 10 minutes, came in during the first action scene. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is amazing. Not the same as Monkey Man, that's for sure, but Monkey Man is still really interesting. A good effort for what it is. On the 26th, I watched Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery, which we introduced, my brother and I, to his girlfriend, who had never seen it before, and I grew up with this film as a kid, so none of it really wows me as much anymore, but obviously a lot more of the adult references I get, because I haven't seen this film in like 10 years. So I gave it 3.5 stars. A lot of my friends gave it 4 to 4.5, which is like, man, that's crazy. But I guess they're more of the, either A, they were alive when it came out. I mean, I was too. I was not alive when this film came out. A lot of 90s stuff I don't really get. But there's also like the parody of it being a spy film and stuff, which like I understand. I've watched a lot of James Bond. I get what it's parodying, but I also grew up with the parody alongside the real deal. So it really is something of that caliber, but it's still really fun. No real complaints from me, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's a 90-minute action comedy, spy parody, you know? It's like you kind of get what you're given in a way. But yeah, it could have been better in some elements, but I just don't like the Vegas stuff. Like, I don't give a shit for when they go heavy-handed on they're going to have a romance and dance on a bus with Burt Bacharach, and like the montage in Vegas, like it feels lower budget, you know, so it feels like if they had a bigger budget, they could have been a bit more expressive of what they had, but, you know, you got to kind of play it safe with first films, and that's just kind of how it is. On the 27th, after watching a bunch of TV at the Astor, because they had the Stay Tuned thing, which was like 11 hours of TV, which included an episode of The Jeffersons, of Kolchak, of The Addams Family. There was even Twin Peaks, but I left while Twin Peaks was on because I'm like, I've seen this before, and it's 9 o'clock. I've been up since 7. I want to go to bed. What else did I watch? I have like a whole logging of it. 30-something, we watched episode 11, episode of season 1. Season 5, episode 21 of The Jeffersons. Season 1, episode 20 of The Addams Family. And season 1, episode 4 of Kolchak. So they were interesting. Fun to watch on the big screen, maybe not so much, but it was a really great watching The Addams Family. That was the real one that I'm like, this is the shit. I was having so much fun watching that because I have not watched that show, so it was like an absolute blast. And I'm like, where are the kids? Why aren't they in this episode? So yeah, but I did go home and watched Beetlejuice on 4K. I haven't seen it in like 4 years, which is fucked. Like I hadn't seen it since this like 2020. Which why is that a thing? I saw it in 2019, saw it in 2020. Did not watch it anytime after that until last night because whenever I hear the score, because it plays occasionally on one of my playlists, and I hear the Danny Elfman score, I'm just like, I need to watch this movie again. So I go out and I put the movie on. I love it. It's such a beautiful film. I absolutely adore it. 5 stars. Favorite Tim Burton. Easy peasy. It's good stuff. The 4K is incredible. I'm actually surprisingly eager for the sequel. Like, I don't like modern Tim Burton, but I'm hoping that maybe something about this new film can actually be good. It might be fucking atrocious, but who knows? It's not why I watched the old one. I just wanted to. And then on the 28th, I did a double feature, a weird one, of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, which I gave 3.5 as well. It's, for me, a film that is far superior than the first one, because there's so much more they do with its budget, with like the different locations, the different evil layers, the time travel element. But then it's kind of lowered down because of the fact that they have to revert to, oh, we're going to go back to the 60s because we have no ideas for how to parody the 60s counterculture with the 90s culture anymore. So we're just going to go back in time again and be like, let's make a bunch of 90s references in the 60s. It doesn't make any sense, and that's kind of the joke. So some of those 90s references do not pay off very well. Mostly the time when Dr. Evil is talking to the president and he's making all these references, and it's like, why is he saying this stuff? Like, even his son's like, no one understands what you're talking about because that's 30 years from now. He's making references to Jerry Maguire, which won't come out for 20 years. So it's like, what is he doing? So I get the joke that they're going for of like, oh, he's making a 90s reference, haha, funny, but also haha, funny because he's an idiot. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's trying to be hip, but he's being hip to people who don't know what he's talking about at all, like he's speaking French or something. So there are elements like that, but I do like the Jerry Springer stuff. Like, that stuff is really fun to watch, even though I never grew up watching that show because I'm in Australia, hello. But I always knew what it was because of Austin Powers. So that's kind of funny. And also, it's there's a lot of context in the movie, so like you kind of understand exactly what you're watching when you're watching it. I feel like I could give it a higher rating because I gave it 3.5 stars, so maybe it's more of a 4-star movie, but I wasn't as... it's not as funny to me as the first one. The first one has a lot of great practical gags, whereas the second one has a lot more like conversational gags, you know, again, the references and stuff. I love Mini-Me, and even Fat Bastard to a degree I find to be quite amusing. Mostly the Scottish thing, if anything, because he just sounds like Shrek. Like, sure, still a stereotype, but hey, it is what it is. But Mini-Me is a great addition. I like how they expand on some of the other characters. Like, they just bring back number 2 and he's got a slight burn on his face. And then they go back in time and he's played by Rob Lowe, who literally plays a character in the first film. A different character. But then there's also stuff like the first film where I love the part where, you know, he gets doing the reversing with the truck and it gets stuck, and the steamroller thing, and then the whole element of calling the guy who's got steamrolled in his family, and like, oh, why did they never think of like the goons and whatever? I'm like, that's such a great gag. It's such a great parody gag. But then in the sequel, they do have the great dick joke. So I'm like, oh, man. They do have some really good jokes in the second one, but the first one I think is funnier. I just think the second one's better, but I don't think Heather Graham was good in the second one. She's very attractive, and I find her to be more attractive than Elizabeth Hurley per se, but Elizabeth Hurley knew how to play against Michael Myers, whereas I don't think Heather Graham did. It almost seems like after her first scene in the 60s, she just doesn't know how to play against him, and she seems kind of bored, like, immediately. Like, she started regretting it after, like, the second day of shooting. So, yeah. There are some elements that I'm a bit up in the air about, so it is what it is. I just watched that by myself, by the way. My brother and his girlfriend were not here, so I was like, I'm going to watch it, fuck them. I don't want to watch the third one again, not anytime soon. And then I watched King Kong from 2005, which I watched the extended cut on 4K, hoping that the 4K would work and not fuck up like it did last time. It worked fine, no issues. I'd never seen the extended cut before, so that was like an extra 20 minutes of just basically monster fights, which was really cool. A nice, most of them are like homages to the original film, like with the Triceratops and stuff, so I appreciate that stuff being there. It's not particularly necessary, but there are some stuff that like emphasizes like character stuff as well, like Jimmy's relationship with Ace and how the Denham, whatever his name is, the Carl Denham. I always keep thinking his name's Jack Denham, but it's Carl Denham. It's played by Jack Black, of course, and how he like starts kind of losing it, especially in the trench. They don't really play up that, but I feel like they could have, but they don't. So it's like, eh. Still, I give it 4 stars. I still really like it. I don't emotionally connect to the characters. It's very much one of those things, it's just a movie. But still, and the 4K has some interesting ups and downs. I don't like the part at New York at the start. It looks too green screeny background. But when they set sail, from there it looks great. The island looks amazing. The effects of the monsters look great. Kong doesn't look bad in like really any scene until like the very end when he's like on the frozen lake. He just looks a bit out of place. But that's only in some shots. So when they do go back to New York and it's all dark and nighttime and winter, it looks really good. It just, I don't know, it's a great looking film at sometimes, it's just, yeah. It's a 4K that I don't really think I needed the upgrade for. I mostly bought it a couple years back because it was on sale. But the DTSX, the sound design, sounds really good. So I don't know how much of an uptick that is in contrast to the 5.1. But I did listen to the last hour in headphones because, again, my brother had to go to bed. And it's a 3 hour and 20 minute long film. And it was really fun listening to that last hour in the headphones. I probably could have listened to the whole thing in the headphones and still been perfectly immersed by all the creepy sound effects and the score. So, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I would probably suggest the 4K just because, but try to get a version that has ideally both cuts as well as the production diaries, because the production diaries are really goddamn good. So, yeah. What else did I watch in these last 2 days of the month? I was just looking up how to pronounce the next movie, and I realized I watched a video essay that was on the Criterion release, and the woman said Beau Travail. It's Beau Travail. It's French, so of course it's Beau Travail. I watched Beau Travail. That was the third last movie I've watched this month. I got the Criterion in. I was like, it's 93 minutes, why not? Is it weird that there's a whole empty slot there? I've removed all the Marvel films. I put them up the top. Who's going to watch the Marvel films? Who cares? They're up the top now. Yeah, I'm reorganizing. But it was really interesting to rewatch Beau Travail. It took me a while to know it was called Beau. That's because I've got a colleague called Beau. Travail. Just crazy. I haven't seen this in a couple of years, since 2021. The Blu-ray was $27. It seemed like an obvious choice to get it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I gave it 4 stars last time, but I'm like, honestly, I gave King Kong from 2005 4 stars. I got to give Beau Travail something more. And it kind of deserves it. It's a very intricate, beautiful film. It is so compelling, and also, I have no idea what's going on half the time. In my review, I compared it to poetry. Sometimes I just don't get it, and sometimes you just do. A lot of it is, especially when you watch the video essay that's on the Criterion Blu-ray, it's like, oh, okay, like you do the analysis, you realize a lot of it's imagery that causes meaning. There's operatic sequences, which I'm like, okay, this opera means something that I'm just like not well versed in, because it turns out with French cinema, a lot of the time you need to actually be educated to understand things. Who'd have thought? And this is like 1999. Who's going to go out of their way to like look up on the web, on the net? Oh, what does Beau Travail mean? What's the meaning? So yeah, it's a good film. I highly recommend it. It is, but it's very weird. It's French, so of course it's weird. It's I think it's one of 2 films I've seen by Claire Denis. The only other film of hers I've seen is High Life, which I gave like 4 stars back in the day, and even then I was like, I don't know what this is. But then I followed it up with The Son of Kong, which I gave 2 stars. I'll be doing a King Kong video soon, because I want to talk about all of the King Kong films, because I've now watched them all, which is kind of crazy, all within like a 6-month span. So, yeah, it was not great, but I'll discuss it more in that video, mostly because of the runtime of this video. But it was on the Internet Archive, so you can watch it for free in 1080p, which is insane. So if you do want to watch it, go ahead. It's not easy to find on physical. There's like one Blu-ray and it's well out of print. So yeah, unless there's like a 4-pack bundle, I think Warner was it Warner? I think it might have been Warner, but one of those like 4-pack sets you can sometimes get with like Mighty Joe Young and stuff like that. So yeah, if you can find that. But and last but not least, today I watched His Girl Friday from 1940, which I gave 4.5 stars. It probably deserves 5. I'm tossing 4.5, 5. It has so many fun things. It has the classic GIF moment where Cary Grant tells the guys to get out. Like he has so many queer hand movements. I love it. It's beautiful to watch, but it's so fast with its talking, which is no criticism from me. Like, it's a very fast talking film, and I'm used to this kind of fast talking film. I like a lot of Howard Hawks films, all these like 40s films, Philadelphia Story, that kind of stuff, where they talk really, really fast, and you kind of have to understand exactly what they're saying as they're saying it, because they're in conversation with each other, as well as talking over other people, as well as picking up the phone and answering the phone and doing this and doing that. So many actions. I don't know, I can talk that fast, so I understand it. I had no issues with it, so maybe 5 stars. I might rewatch and give it 5 stars, because sometimes I like to kind of have the philosophy, which I don't stick to, that if I'm not certain on a film being 5 stars, I give it 4 to 4.5, and then the next time I watch it, I'm like, now it's 5. Sometimes. But I've got no criticisms of the film. I like every single moment of it. Like, it's good stuff. It's beautiful. I watched the UHD release, because I know there was a Criterion, but I got the Columbia Classic set, and I figured 90 minutes, I'll put it on, easy peasy. Looks great, sounds great. It has a bunch of special features, which I should dive into. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I definitely would recommend it. Obviously, it's a masterpiece. It's Howard Hawks. He just knows how to do these films so well, and it talks really, really fast. But it's so well executed for that reason. That's why I feel like I should give it 5 stars. But it's like, the thing is, I thought it was more of a 4-star film from what I was feeling. So it's like, what does it matter? It's good. It's goddamn good cinema. Anyway, that's it for the month. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching. See you next month. I'll try not to watch 50-odd films next month, but you know me, I like watching movies. So I watched about 53, 54 films, I think. There'll be a number there. Is that a lot? That includes the documentaries. The Omen one and the Temple of Doom one, but not Fallout. Okay, bye.